Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Hi, I'm Seth, and welcome back to this week's video. I don't know if you've taken a look outside lately, but kind of looks like we're close to the end. So I thought it might be a good time for us to take a look at what the possibilities of the future could be, and talk about my odds of actually surviving to see this dystopian future we're moving into. So, witness me as we look at our tier list today. As we're getting into it, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can make sure to get content that we put out every single week. We've got 4 different tiers on today's list: Dead Day 1, Long Gone, Surviving, and Thriving. So let's go ahead and look at the different dystopian futures that we might find ourselves in. The first dystopian future I want to talk about is what I'm calling Last Man on Earth. This is kind of seen in the Last Man on Earth TV show, which is like a comedic look at it, even though he ends up not being the last man on Earth. Even in the first episode, it's just what he thought was going on and what he had to live with for years. But then also thinking back to the movie I Am Legend, again, not the reality of the situation, but the life he was having to live for a while. How would I live in that kind of an environment? And you know what? I think I do okay for a little bit. But I do think I would start to lose my grip on reality after a while.
Does anyone want a whiskey? Huh? Greg? Kevin? Anton?
I think I might put myself in surviving on this one just because there's no outside threats. Who knows how long I lasted. Now when it comes to The Road, or The Last of Us, I'm calling this like The Worst of Us is what I'm calling this entry. And it's just where the virus and everything brings out the worst in everybody. Nothing like reality on this one. But for real, if things go bad in something like this, I'm not somebody who's living in a delusional world where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a survivor. I'm a fighter. I'm much too nice of a person to think that I would make it that far, and also couldn't do the kind of things that people have to do in these stories to survive. Dead Day 1 on that one. Now we get into the fun ones, right? And that's in the Mad Max apocalypse world. Again, I don't think I'm going to last in this one, and I probably wouldn't want to. I'm going to say Long Gone because this is more of like a slow burn kind of thing. I think I've been gone and dead like way before things got too crazy, but I don't think that it's like one of those times where I would be actively going out to participate in some of these bad things that happen, and so I might be able to survive. If you don't know much about the Mad Max world, it's uncertain as to what happened, but the world is pretty much like a desert. There's like no water. Everybody drives around in cars, so gasoline is very valuable, and they fight for these things. There's different tribes and everything, and in the movies, Max is like this lone person who kind of goes around from place to place and is involved in these different stories. You got to fight to survive. You've got to be cutthroat and take what's yours, and there are some people who live more kindly than that, but for me, I'm not going to be able to be one of those people. I'm no war boy, despite how I had my wife make me up for this video. I'm no war boy. Now going from everything being the desert to everything being water, we get Waterworld. It's going to be a similar situation. Now there are again, outposts and places where people could live. And if, let's say I'm on one of those things, maybe I could get by and I could survive in that. In Waterworld, I believe it's like because of global warming, but other things like water came up from other places that they didn't know about, and so there's like no dry land, and they are all having to live on boats and on floating villages and everything, and they're looking for this mythical dry land where there's like a map for it tattooed on this little girl's back. Actually, the little girl from Napoleon, who it was the girl in Napoleon Dynamite, but when she was littler. And Kevin Costner is the Mariner. I think the Mariner is what they call him. And he's got gills, and he can breathe underwater. Now, I don't get any kind of special gill powers, but I do think that this one would be a little better for me than the Mad Max would. So I'm going to say that I could be surviving in Waterworld. I'm happy to pay my don't blow up my boat taxes to Dennis Hopper, but it's not something I do want to be happy about, but it's probably something I would do to be able to survive. And so hopefully we'll find that dry land before we all die, but I'm just going to say surviving on that one. These next ones are like kind of threat based, which brings us to our most popular one of these, which would be the zombie apocalypse. Now, zombie apocalypse, again, I don't think I'm going to be a day one goner, but I don't think I'm probably going to last that long. Once it comes down to, people having to kill other people for things. I don't go sticking my hands in people's mouths, so I think that will help me out a lot. If somebody tells me that zombies are over somewhere, I'm not going to go to that place. So again, that would be beneficial for me. Good zombie apocalypse movies you think about. Zombieland is a fun comedy version of it, but still get some good zombie action in it. The Dawn of the Dead, the original and the remake, are both really good. A Night of the Living Dead, of course. And then recently, the Army of the Dead by, again, I guess Zack Snyder did the Dawn of the Dead remake. But when it comes to real life, I'm not going to last long when it comes to them, especially if there's a big group, or especially if I might have to do something that I have troubles with morally, because the next dark future that we're talking about is that of the Terminator franchise, Judgment Day, when the machines take over. Whenever I think that, one of these isn't true, I start to think about a different one that could be true. And so whenever I start to feel like, maybe the virus is going to be under control, that's not too bad, then I remember that, Elon Musk is introducing actual, androids that are going to be walking around doing menial tasks and everything. And so it's like, well, if it's not going to be one of these things, it's going to be another. And so robots, again, if they're just out to kill us, I know it would be easier for me to fight a robot than it would for me to fight a person, right? Morally. Now, physically, not at all. I am going to get my heart ripped out by one of these things as soon as they decide that that's what they want to do. I don't think I'm a big enough threat that day one the robots would say he has to die right away. So I think I'm going to get to avoid day one death on this one. But I do think that I'm probably going to be long gone, but not quite as dead as Mad Max. I'm dead, but I'm not that dead. In case you aren't familiar with the Terminator series, Judgment Day comes about when computers become self-aware, become sentient, and Skynet decides that they just want to get rid of people, and so they launch a bunch of nukes and then build robots to hunt down the rest of humanity, and then make time travel to go back and try to kill us before the guy who leads us in the fight is born. And so not a fun future to have to live through. I mean, when it's first introduced in one of the Terminator movies, the first thing you see is a robot crushing a human skull. So, that kind of sets the tone. Reign of Fire is a movie that I don't know if there's any other movies like it, so it gets its own place on the tier list, and that is the world where dragons exist. They had been living, I guess, underground for a while, and then they got woken up. And this movie has Christian Bale in it and Matthew McConaughey, and they're trying to survive in this world where dragons are around, fire-breathing dragons. And as I mentioned back in my Harry Potter video, if dragons were real and were running around, we would, definitely be in a lot of trouble, because they're bigger than us, they're going to want to eat us, and they can blow fire, and fire is not good. So when it comes to surviving in this world, though, living underground, all that stuff, I think I could be a part of that. So as much as it's a danger and all that, again, I'm not going to be somebody who's like, I got to go out and I got to fight the dragons. And so I think that I would be able to survive a little bit longer, because of that. So I think I'm going to put this one again on surviving, but not quite as much as I would in Waterworld. I just live underground. I could learn how to cook better. I can cook already, some. And plus, hey, maybe everybody else who's better than me at cooking got crispy fried by a dragon. And so maybe I'm pretty useful in that way in this future. So we'll say I could be surviving in Reign of Fire. And we get to the far future of Planet of the Apes, which I guess is a spoiler. The Planet of the Apes is just a future thing and not a different planet. I guess it depends which Planet of the Apes series you're watching, whether or not that's a surprise to you. But in the original ones, it's a surprise twist ending that happens at the end of the movie. He doesn't know he's on Earth until the end of the movie. Charlton Heston goes out and he's on the beach and he sees the Statue of Liberty and he's like, "You blew it all to hell." Humans are slaves in this to the apes. Humans don't speak anymore. I'm not, very strong. I'm not built for that kind of work, and so I don't think I'm necessarily somebody that they would want to keep around, and so they probably would just let me go. And by that I mean let me die. So I think I'm going to be dead probably. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe growing up in that world, it was a little bit different. So I'll have to put long gone. Probably long gone. Because again, the monkeys don't take over just in one day. It's a slow burn kind of a situation for them. So I'll go long gone on that one. Cyberpunk future, like that found in Blade Runner and like the Cyberpunk, again, series of games, both tabletop and video games, is not a good place to be living in either. Like lots of different gangs and everything running around, people having cybernetic parts and everything put into them. Gosh, I think, again, I could survive, but it wouldn't be, a very fun survival. I mean, I like noodles, and, it seems like people eat a lot of noodles in Cyberpunk stuff, and so maybe I'd be all right after all. Up next, we have what I'm calling super crime. This is like the world of, Robocop, Judge Dredd, Hobo with a shotgun. A world where criminals are just allowed to kind of like run rampant. The police have like no abilities to stop them at all until they become robots, of course. And in this kind of a world, I don't know if I'm able to get away from crime. I'm easy pickings when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's something I should really be broadcasting over the internet. Now, there are people that live in these worlds that are just normal, like the guy who owns the shop in Robocop that gets robbed, or the guy that is running the gas station in Robocop that gets robbed, or, any of Robocop's family. Like, it seems like as long as you're not living in some of these big metropolitan cities where crime has just become crazy, like Detroit or Mega City 1 in Judge Dredd, or whatever city it is that Hobo with a shotgun is set in. As long as you're not there, then you can at least maybe get by. Like, things aren't so bad that even the guy who works at the gas station in Detroit is like, I'm going to study for my college course or my high school course. So I don't think that I'm necessarily going to be dead. But I know I wouldn't want to be living in one of these big cities. Where you live is really going to determine a lot on how alive you are in this one. I think that I could be surviving in this one. I might even go all the way up. Yeah, because there's other people around. Why not? But the second Robocop shows up in real life, like, things are bad. It's like, oh, they need a robot mega cop to be able to take on these gangs that have overridden the city. Next up, we got Snowpiercer. If you've never seen Snowpiercer, it's a movie about a train that is continually running at the end of the world because everything is frozen, and it's like the only place that people are alive. And the train is sectioned off into different cars, and the more wealthy you are, the further up in the train you are. You have more supplies. That way, like, things kind of get passed from the head of the train to the back of the train, so the people at the back of the train are barely getting anything, and what they are getting is very questionable as to like what it is. Even it's really not a pleasant thing if you are at all empathetic to people. Like, if you are thinking like, oh, it's pretty bad for the people in the back of the train. Like, I have a hard time enjoying things when I know other people are having a bad time, and you would have to know that all the time. Though they do show the people in this train are indoctrinated, like when they are kids. So like they are, lied to about like how the people at the back of the train feel and everything. Which, to be fair, we sometimes gloss over things like that as well, and aren't necessarily completely honest. Why put the necessarily? We aren't completely honest either with the things that we hear and that we're taught about how people who are worse off than us feel about like what's really going on. So it's pretty realistic, I think. Now, personally, where would I be? How would I feel? Again, it's like where you get put on the train. But I would think that like if I'm at the back of the train, again, you grow up and you have to grow up tough. But if it's just me, I showed up there, they would not want me to be there because I'm not helping them at all. So I'm just going to put Long Gone on Snowpiercer. Most people in the world died anyway when the world froze, so I probably was just one of those people. The next one on the list I'm calling YA Dystopian Futures, which is young adult dystopian futures, like The Hunger Games, The Giver, Divergent, and I'm for sure I think I'm going to be Long Gone. I'll put surviving. Here's what I do. I'll put surviving on this one. But this is the caveat I'm putting on it. I'm surviving, but I am without a doubt a bad guy in one of these stories, right? Because I'm not a teenager, for one. I'm past that, so I don't get to be that anymore. So I'm probably like working for the secret police, or like my kid is the main character, and I'm like, you can't question the elders. They know what they're doing. And they're like, Dad, but I see colors now. Like in The Giver, and or Mom. I don't know why she's calling me Mom, but sure. Mom, I have to fight in the Hunger Games. And I'm like, okay. That's oh no. And so like I'm just not gonna be like helpful. Like again, we all like to pretend that we're like the good character, but in reality, most people in these stories are complacent at best, and that's probably where I would find myself. And again, in a lot of these stories, it depends where you live, on how you feel about how things are going. I would be surviving, but again, not well. I don't know. What do you think? What one of these so far do you think you would be the most likely to be surviving in? Next up, we have The Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. This one could kind of fit into a couple different categories. Now, most of these could fit into different categories, but we just split them up because you have to. The Running Man, though, is a movie where there's a TV show that exists, where you get dropped into it and you have to fight these like American Gladiator type characters and like kill them to survive. Again, I get dropped into the game, I'm dead. If I'm just a person that's alive in the world, it's I'm okay. And so I think it's probably more fun to say like, are we in the world? Right? That's way more fun to say. So let's do that. Am I in the game? If I'm in the game, I'm dead. So I'm just going to put that up here. I'm dead day one. Like there's a guy in this movie that like shoots electricity out of his hands. Even if it was just the normal guys who are the actors in this movie and they were the ones that were trying to kill me, I would be dead. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger barely gets out of this thing alive. There's no way that I'm going to. A fake utopia is the next world. This one I'm thinking of like, iRobot or Logan's Run. Logan's Run is a movie where like you live to be I think 30 and then you like get just killed, and so there's like people who it's their job to take care of that, and so it's like you think, oh yeah, life is fine until you hit 30. Movies like Minority Report, also in here, or even the Sylvester Stallone movie Demolition Man. These worlds where it looks pretty and it looks put together and people feel safe, but there's like this underlying huge lie that is making it possible. This is probably the most like real life, right? The most like what it is here. Like there's just tons of lies that we just don't know or choose to ignore. Now for most people in these worlds, like life is pretty good. So I'm going to take the odds on this one and say the odds are I'd be thriving. But again, I'm not somebody who goes chasing down conspiracy theories or wanting to know, like, how did this happen? And, like, what happened to this? And blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just a normal person. And so for a majority of the people in these worlds, things are fine. And so I think that that's kind of where I would end up. Now, dead on day one, this one might come as a surprise. The movie Idiocracy, I think I'm going to be dead on day one in that one. So in the movie Idiocracy, it's the idea that it's just dumb people who have had kids. It's a comedy written by the guy who did King of the Hill and everything. But only the dumb people have had kids for so long that everybody is just very dumb. And so they think a Gator, like, for example, like, comically dumb. Like, they think that Gatorade is what you give plants. And so a guy from the present was cryogenically frozen and woke up, and he is the smartest guy on Earth, but just by being, like, a normal everyday guy. Maybe, I mean, he gets really lucky in, like, the things he runs into and everything that make it so he doesn't get killed, but I don't think I'd be that lucky. I think I'd be dead day one, because of the things that they do find to be, the most important, like where they solve their problems by, like, doing, like, monster truck battles and stuff like that. And so I don't think I'm walking out of that one alive. Next, we've got The Matrix. I guess there's really two things to take into account here. The Matrix being born outside of the Matrix, and then being born inside the Matrix. Inside the Matrix is going to be like, everyday life. In the Matrix, robots, again, have taken over and have harnessed people and turned them into batteries. And so they've found that we're better batteries when we live a life, and they can't just suck our power out of us while we're sleeping. They got to let us live a life. And so they create a digital world that we go into. And then there's a group of people who live outside of that who are trying to save people from the Matrix. And so if I was on the outside, I don't think I'd last very long. And if I was on the inside, it'd just be normal life. So I'm probably going to put Long Gone on this one. Again, who gets freed from the Matrix? It's people who are hackers and stuff like that. People who are questioning reality, not just like authority, but like questioning like reality and all of that stuff. I'm probably not going to be, Morpheus isn't going to be coming to my door and saying, hey, you want to come out of the Matrix? But in a cooler way, like the way Morpheus would say it. And even if he did, I'm going to be like that kid who's like pushing around ammo and like gets killed by a robot, like in a fight. And so the Matrix is not something I'd want to live in. Now, when it comes to dystopian futures, though, the one that I know I would be the best at is WALL-E. Because I can sit down, I can drink a Slurpee, I can float around in a chair and watch things. We're going to pretend that's the part of WALL-E that I'm living in. The part that they decide is bad. And to be fair, it is. But I would rock it the way, as long as it was going on. I would rock that WALL-E world. In case you've never seen it, in WALL-E, the world's become polluted, which is bad. So much so that people had to leave, and it's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And now people are too big to walk, essentially, and have floating chairs that have TV screens. And they just drink like endless slushies all the time. Which, there are days that would sound pretty awesome. And even when they come back to Earth and they're having to, work towards making things better, they've got robots helping them and everything. And so I think that the WALL-E future is the best one, dystopian one to look at. And I think the best one for us to end our list on too. Got a little bit of hope there. Like, looking at all of these, it's pretty much the only one where there's like and you know what? Things will get better. But anyway, I thought this would be a fun way to close out August with our Oops All tier lists. Let me know, what dystopian future did I leave off of the list? Was there anything that I didn't talk about that you wished I would have? Which future do you think you would be the most successful in living in? Which one do you think you would die the quickest in? Please, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel when it comes to getting us out there so that more people can see the stuff. I've got a playlist that has all my tier lists on it that you can go ahead and click on, and you can see what other things we've been ranking. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you have a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday with another video.